So I'm up in Aylmer, Quebec in Canada, and with Bill Scobie today, and he has done a marvelous job of reproducing the Rio Grande Southern Railway from Colorado. And so what he's going to do today is just take us through his layout. You've seen some of his videos before, but I thought it'd be interesting to see his ideas and how he planned this railway out. How are you doing today, Bill?
I'm doing just fine, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great.
We modeled basically the northern half of the railroad from Ridgeway to Rico.
Right.
That's about 66 miles of main line.
Mm-hmm.
The Telluride branch comes off at Vance Junction. It's a 10-mile branch.
Yes.
And I have 2 staging yards which handle all the excess cars and outbound trains. That's pretty much it. And
this is representing pretty much a prototype that's in Colorado, correct?
This whole layout is based on the Rio Grande Southern in the warm weather of 1940.
Mm-hmm.
The RGS survived from 1890 to 1951, and then it was gone.
Yeah.
It sort of hung on by its fingernails through most of its history.
What was the reason for purpose for a railroad like that?
Originally it was for the ore in the San Juan Mountains around Telluride and areas like that. But as things played out with the crash of the silver market in 1893, it became more reliable for transportation of ore and cattle and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
It did a lot of coal movement, and it was the general form of transportation through this part of Colorado.
And this is a narrow gauge railroad.
It's a 3-foot gauge railroad, yes.
Okay, and that was unique to the Colorado area?
Yeah, there was a lot of the railroads in Colorado were built in 3-foot gauge. It was easier to build, it was cheaper, took up less land, and fitted into places that would have been hard for a bigger line to go into.
For model railroaders, I guess there's several different gauges that people could consider if they wanted to model this type of railroading. Some better than others. You're smiling, and then...
Yeah, there's some pretty small stuff that I don't think even I would take on.
Yeah.
I was in Sn3 for a long, long time, but I started moving into Sn3 in 1984, and next thing you know, everything's done in Sn3 now. Mm-hmm. And I've deliberately set my date as the warm weather of 1940 and tried to keep all my equipment within that time zone or previous to that.
Well, it must be a very special time of year then if you're always saying it's the warm weather of 1940. Is that saying that it's during the summer months?
Well, it's during the summer months, and I'm not tying myself down to any specific date. A lot of guys say, well, this is August 3rd,
yeah.
1940. I don't want to do that. I want enough flexibility that I can bend the rules a bit. And if you look at all my equipment, most of it's lettered in the Rio Grande Herald or Circular Herald type lettering scheme, but I have one locomotive that's in the new Flying Rio Grande. It will be the only one. Mm-hmm. And I have a few freight cars, but everything else is in the older lettering scheme.
I guess too there's been a couple of larger scales that have dabbled a bit in this. ON3 is an example, and some G scale stuff.
ON3 is really nice if you want to run a small layout and mm-hmm. have some really well detailed cars. Mm-hmm. That's not saying what in Sn3 is not well detailed too, but yeah. ON3 is just that little bit bigger.
Yes. And
if you go to the large scale stuff, well, that's good for outdoors, provided it doesn't snow too much.
Now, in your basement here, what you've attempted to do covers a lot of ground. What's the size of the layout room?
The layout room is 30 by 55. 30
by 55. And about how many feet of mainline track have you laid?
The main line is 500 feet long from Ridgeway to Rico, and that does not count the staging yards, mm-hmm. nor does it count passing sidings or the yards themselves. So I have well over 1,000 feet of track laid.
And you've done that all on hand laying?
It's all hand laid except the staging yards. They're done in flex track.
Oh, that's amazing. So in order to get all that length in and get all the railroading somewhat covered for that area, you've had to go to multiple levels, as I see behind you as well.
Yeah, I basically go twice around the layout.
Yeah.
Or twice around the basement. And in order to do that, when I climb the grade toward Lizard Head, then I just run around on a second level and drop into Ophir Loop and come into Rico back down at basically ground level again. Mm-hmm.
So it's point to point. Maybe what you could do is take us from a tour from one end to the other so people can get an idea of what's happening here. We can start here in your first town at at the beginning of the line in Ridgeway.
Yeah, this is Ridgeway. It's the connection point with the Denver and Rio Grande Western to Montrose.
Yes.
I have certainly more equipment as far as engines and that on the layout than I need, but you know, I like engines and I like freight cars.
Sure.
So what we have here is engine houses scratch built. Most of the buildings here are commercial kits, either by Rags to Riches or Bill Banta. There's a bunch of some scratch built ones.
Mm-hmm.
And we move along. Joe Foose at Rags didn't like my original depot that I built. He hated it right from square one. So he built me a new one. Thank you, Joe.
Oh, gee, it looks really nice.
Now I got to finish it.
Yeah, well, I mean, everything takes time, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
And I was noticing in the background your passenger equipment and your rolling stock. It looks like it's they're built as kits, eh?
Yeah, they're the old V&T Shops kits. The guys around here don't really like running galloping geese. After a while they say, yeah, it's like watching paint dry. Oh. They want to run a full passenger train. So okay, we run full passenger trains. I do use Rio Grande equipment though. I was tempted to letter it RGS and I said, no, leave it the way it is.
Now when you look at this end of the line in an operating session, how many trains depart from here with operators?
Well, the first job the guy has to do here is switch out the OCS, which is the coal cars at the engine house.
Yes.
Then he has to make up the train going to Montrose.
Right.
And then he breaks up the train coming from Montrose.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got to assemble the next operating session's ore train and mainline freight.
Right.
And he also has to deal with the ore train and the mainline freight that are coming in from other parts of the layout. He's a busy man.
Yeah, so this Sunday I guess you got that hat on and we'll get a chance to have a bit of a look at that.
Yeah, it's very seldom I get to run my own layout. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'm hoping that you remembered how to do it.
Oh, that's going to be a challenge.
Let's go on and have a look at the next town.
All right.
So after we've left Ridgeway, the train passes along the lower side on some scenic background in the lounge area and also where the dispatcher's computer terminal is. And what's the next town on the line?
The next town is Brown. It suffered a little adventure with C4 earlier this year. I blew the whole thing out except for the track and road bed because I wanted to add some more tracks to the Montrose staging yard, which is underneath it.
Yes.
And the easiest way to do that was just let the C4 roll.
Uh-huh.
So I pulled it all out and started reassembling it, and hopefully this summer I'll get around to finishing it.
I guess when you look at it as model railroaders, it just goes to prove this railroad's been around for a period of time, eh? How many years has it been?
30 years now.
So for 30 years, it's okay to actually go back in a place and do some upgrades.
I have taken out quite a bit. I blew Trout Lake out basically the same way.
Yeah.
C4 works really well now. And rebuilt it.
Especially in scale.
Yeah.
Use firecrackers?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Bang. Well,
I should come by for one of those days. So Brown is a small siding as it stands right now, and there's just the opportunity to maybe drop or pick up a couple of cars for the area, and it's a water stop, eh?
That's about all it is. It's primarily a water stop. I do have a few other small buildings to build and a couple of other little tricks, and of course there's a bunch of trees and that yet to put back in. I hope to get that finished soon.
Excellent. So the layout passes under the stairs and comes out in another town here, Bill. What's the name of this town?
This is Placerville along the San Miguel River. It's a rather busy town.
Yeah.
I keep it busier deliberately because I have enough cars I can do it.
Right.
Most of the buildings in this town are scratch built. There are a couple of re-engineered kits. And just to see how cheap I am, neat looking building. It's all masonite.
Oh, there you go.
All right?
Yeah.
You can't get any cheaper.
No, but it's all you need to do is put a good front on it, and it fits the scene very well.
And the corrugated iron is made in my own corrugated iron factory because it's actually aluminum foil.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, cheap, I know.
Another very nice station, too.
Yeah, Bill Meredith built that for me quite some time ago.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So this town here must be quite a challenge for the operators coming in. I see that there is a double access from each end of the line to the warehouses, and also down at the end it looks like there's a Y that goes in under the stairs to a couple of industries, oil, fuel, and cattle industry on the end there. So it must be a bit of a bottleneck at times when you have all the mainline trains coming through.
It's a challenge, and you get an operator in here that's not really imaginative, it can be skunked. But if you go in here, it's relatively easy to work because you can get it from both ends.
Yeah.
So you can't really skunk yourself.
And sometimes too, I guess when you're going upgrade, you have your helper service, so you can work both ends at the same time.
Most times the train coming out of Ridgeway does have a helper, so he can work one end of the yard while the road engine works the other end, and it works quite well.
So the freight, the mainline freight, then it usually has a fair number of cars on it as well, I would imagine.
Anywhere up to 20.
Wow, that's pretty neat.
One other thing is all my telegraph lines, I used Lycra when I put them in. Unfortunately, in the past 10 years, it's deteriorated, so I bought some Easy Line, and all of those are going to get fixed sometime soon, I hope. Fantastic.
I really like the reddish tone of the earth here. That's did you have to go to PEI or somewhere to get that?
Came from Colorado.
So you imported the real thing?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, that's really great. Is there any process that you go to make sure the bugs are out of it? Or
yeah,
you
it all gets cooked before we bring it.
So you microwave it, or?
No, we set up a pot and put a good fire underneath it.
Okay.
Clean it all out, so it's all nuclear free.
Yeah, that's sometimes people forget to do that. So, but it's the way to do it is to get all those bugs and anything out of it.
Everything is well cooked before we bring it back.
Yeah. I just love the color tone because it makes you feel like you're right in Colorado.
Yeah, and if you look there, it's funny, there's all kinds of different colors, and it's not like they're all blended. It's like you have a section and there's a knife cut, and then there's a different color, and then there's another knife cut.
Yeah.
You stand down the valley and watch it, you can see all those colors.
That's amazing. Yeah. I really like your turnouts too. I guess they're all operating switch stands?
All operating switch stands.
Yeah, so they're slow motion turnouts?
They're supposed to be, but
that's pretty slow. Oh, that's fantastic.
I do have about 78 tortoises on the bus wire, so it does slow it down a bit.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. And it looks like you use spirea for your trees along here?
Yeah, lots of spirea, furnace filter, hemp, all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then your waterway down here is quite neat too, with your rapids and that.
That's a 2-part resin that Doug Pellicola played with a long time ago.
It's very effective.
Yeah, it's not looking too bad.
So now we've progressed along the line, along the river valley, and we're in another location, Fall Creek.
Yeah, this is basically just a passing siding out in the middle of nowhere. It does get used.
Yes.
It's also a good place to store cars and screw up the operation.
But I guess when you've got some oncoming passenger trains, you can do some saw-bys here and keep the line moving.
That's right.
Very nice. And there's another thing I noticed about your railroad, that you've got a lot of nice trestles. This is a feature I guess you actually see quite a bit in Colorado.
There were a lot of trestles on the RGS, and they were pretty flimsy looking if you look at them. I've had several engineers look at them, and they can never understand why there's no diagonal bracing there.
Right.
Never was. There was only one bridge that I can remember on this section of the railroad that had some diagonal bracing, and that was the one at Meadow Creek.
Huh. So now this is a part that pushes back through the center of your basement and almost dog bones back on itself, eh?
The basement was wide enough that I could run down the center of the basement, swing around, and then get this big vanadium mill complex on this side, and then come back down the other side and throw a couple of other mills in.
So vanadium is a mill? It was the source of
some of the ingredients for the first nuclear bombs.
Oh, okay.
And it had radium and uranium and a couple of other things.
Now, in reality, this didn't exist, though. This is your a bit of a license?
This existed.
Oh, it did exist.
It did exist. The only problem is the only photographs I've seen of it were taken in 1910, 1911.
Yeah.
And I've seen only one iffy photograph of it in 1940, and the whole facility got quite a bit bigger. But I've not been able to turn any information on that at all.
Well, I guess because it's all top secret still.
Well, the Army's got control of it now, and RGS crews are not allowed on the property. Well,
right.
That's the lie I tell.
Yeah.
It just means the big engines won't fit the curves, they're too tight.
Well, I see all the military vehicles there. Did you, those weren't originally from model railroad type kits?
The brown trucks actually belong to the mill.
Okay.
They're PBL white metal trucks that I've played with, and I've modified one of them to make it a 2-axle job, or 3-axle job, plus I have one with the dumper up. The engine house here is the old Revell engine house kit.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Alright, I got that from Carl Swale. He said if you can use it, it's yours. If you can't, I want it back. Well, I'm using it.
Yeah, no, it looks terrific in here.
So it's the engine house for the military switcher, and it's also the car shop for the trucks and that.
I really like the way you did the scenic divide here along the background, so you can't see the other side. It's been done with carved foam.
It's a masonite backdrop with carved foam brought up against it and colored and beat up. And
yeah, it's terrific because it's not very thick, right? It's almost like like what you'd find on a module, just as you say, masonite.
There's a scene immediately on the other side.
Huh, that's terrific. That's really cool. That's quite the complex. Now, are those all scratch-built buildings?
All scratch-built, except for the boiler house. That's one of Vanta's kits that I took a gentle sledgehammer to.
So where did you get the ideas to build these
all
kits?
All based on those 2 photographs, 1910, 1911.
And all above-ground piping? And
I've always wanted to put in an elevated steam line.
Yeah.
So when did I do that? After I'd put in all the telephone lines, hydro lines and everything else. The neat thing is, I only broke 2 hydro lines when I did the job.
Oh, well, there you go. So here's your, is this the new line that you put on here? Is this the older Lycra?
No, none of the lines have been changed yet. All of these are going to have to get pulled down and new ones put up. I've also got to respace some of my telegraph poles. Some of them are a little too far apart.
Yeah, it's interesting though, you know, to see them in S scale shows you how dominating they can be in the scene, but obviously makes it look very realistic.
I like the way they hang.
Yeah,
and
you got a
when
nice
I put the
droop.
new easy line in, I've got to make sure I maintain the same sort of hang in the lines.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a challenge when you've got 6 or 8 lines on a pole and get them all hanging at the same angle. It'll keep you busy for a while.
So here we have, I guess, the throat to where all the traffic passes from the Army to the RGS.
Yeah. This scene here is based on some photographs in one of Del McCoy's books. And of course it has the Coors signs on it. And another one of my buddies sent me a postcard with a Coors postcard, so we copied those. And I have signs all over the place.
Well, here we are on the other side of that masonite backdrop that has been covered with foam and painted. Some very large trees, and we're in another small mining facility here.
Yeah, this is Deep Creek. This is the loadout for the cars, and the actual mine is way up the hill on the other side of us. Of course, if I ran the 2 wires up here, I'd be regularly hanging the crew, so I don't bother putting the lines up.
Oh, it makes sense.
It's a good source of industry and keeps the ore train busy. And
then as you walk along, I see here that you have another water stop.
That's the water tank at Deep Creek.
Mm-hmm. These water tanks are quite nice. You've got several of them on the layout.
Yeah, they're the old V&T Shop's resin kits. I bought those 100 years ago. When I first started in Sn3, I was able to buy a bunch of them at a good price, so I bought what I figured I needed.
Wow, they're really done up nicely. You've done all the painting yourself?
I've done all the painting, and I looked carefully at the photographs and tried to weather them within the confines of what I can see.
Yeah, because it's very unique in the sense of how you've done all the colors along the strapping and the...
Well, that's any place where it's dark is where water is running down the tank, so the paint is fading away and the tank is actually starting to rot.
Seems to be lots of ash around the ground there too.
Yeah, good place to get rid of it.
Now here's a trestle that seems to be going across a... Is that where actually Deep Creek is, or?
No, this again is bending the rules.
Ah, bending your rules, okay.
This is actually Lower Gallagher.
Okay.
It's A, not high enough, and B, not long enough, but I've only got so much space.
With a name like Gallagher, I guess that's why there's so many sheep in the valley.
And there's Upper Gallagher, And you don't have to count them. There's 135 sheep in that scene. There's a couple of dogs, and there's
Were they pre-painted, or did you have to paint every one?
I painted them.
Oh my gosh, isn't that great?
Airbrush.
Yeah, why not, eh? Just a few colors and representation, and then here you got a nice scenic block on the corner here with the high trees, just to make a little bit of a break between here and the next area. So here we are, Gallagher, and now we're at 9,899 feet. I guess you got all that information from your trips down south.
Oh, all that information is in several of the books, and when I had the signs made, I put the elevation on. I also put the miles from Ridgeway.
Nice. So here we're just entering...
That's Upper Gallagher.
Upper Gallagher, and there's a siding here.
We're coming into Vance Junction.
Oh, okay.
This is where the Telluride branch cuts off. Although it does not cut off exactly at Vance Junction, there was no room for it.
Okay, so Vance Junction is a fairly major and important point in terms of the flow of the traffic on the railroad.
Well, all those cars that are sitting now are the empties that have come out of Telluride on the last op session. Okay, these cars sitting here were spotted by the last mainline freights in the last operation. Now they will be picked up by the Telluride turn when he brings down the empties. So he'll come down with a block of empties, turn his engine, and then pick these cars up and then head uphill to Telluride and spot all the cars at the various industries.
So here you have trains that are coming from Ridgeway, trains that are coming from Rico. You also have the trains that have to be reversed, I guess, to go up to Telluride and back. Is that right?
There's one ore train that has to be reversed.
Yeah.
And that's the one coming from Rico.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one just pulls right into town, goes right up to Telluride.
So having to reverse a train, and we're talking steam here, I guess you need a Y.
Yep, there's a Y down here.
Okay, just past the station and the bunkhouse. Here's the train that's just completed its turn, I guess, and is ready to go to Telluride.
Yep. So what happens is the train will come in from Rico, pull in here, cut off his cars, the engine will go around the Y, pull the caboose, put it on the Y lead, pick up his train, and then pick up the caboose and then head for Telluride. And
you've also got another little mine scene here in the Y.
Yeah, that's the Ilium mine.
The Ilium mine.
It's worked by the Ridgeway ore train.
Ah, fantastic. And then we're following along the wall.
Mm-hmm.
A couple more trestles. Now we're at the back side of the house here, and here's another train.
That's the other ore train waiting its call to get into Telluride.
Okay, so there's two trains coming from each direction that go with the ore cars up the line. Yep. Now these are empties being taken up there, and they'll have loads that'll come back and go to the two towns.
That's right.
Now when they so when they get to Ridgeway, then they change railroads there? Is that what happens, and it goes out on another railroad?
The ones that go to Ridgeway go out on the DNRG to Montrose.
Right.
And the others coming down to Rico, they go to the DNRG at Durango.
Ah, so the DNRG must have just had the way of being able to corner the market on these poor RGS guys.
Yeah, well, DNRG was the senior line and RGS was sort of the victim.
Ah.